Caffeine. Why is caffeine a problem? Your guests are going to want to know that. Why is it a problem? Let me show you. Here is the nerve cell. And the nerve cell is different to other cells because the nerve cell communicates with the next nerve cell via little chemical messengers. And the chemical messengers come in, then they're sent down the arm. This is the arm. It's called the axon, into the little filaments, and here are the boutons at the end of the filaments, and here is the next nerve cell. And these are the dendrites, the receiving stations. So what happens is the chemical messengers come in. So these are the neurotransmitters, the chemical messengers. They come into the cell, they're encapsulated in the cell. They're sent down the arm, and then they're released into the boutons where they release out to the next nerve cell. In a crisis, that can even be travelling at 200 miles an hour. What caffeine does is it disrupts or interferes with the chemical messengers. One is adenosine. And adenosine is a neurotransmitter that acts like the brakes. Our brain runs according to precision balance. It must have brakes. And when caffeine goes in, adenosine levels drop. That means brakes are failing. So very quickly, the brain develops extra receptor sites on the dendrites to grab every bit that comes through in an attempt to maintain the balance. And then they come to your health retreat. You don't serve any coffee. Adenosine levels go back to normal. Receptor sites get flooded. Oh, does that hurt? No one suffers like the coffee drinker. We've had people come off methamphetamines, heroin, methadone, alcohol, cigarettes. No one suffers like the coffee drinker. Intense. And we can never predict. We had one girl coming off 10 cups a day. I said to the staff, keep your eye on that girl. And we'd say, how are you? She'd say, oh, I've got a slight headache, that's all. And then we had another lady come to the retreat. I said, what's the reason for your coming? I always ask their reason for coming, and I write down exactly what they say. Because then in the final chat, I want to go right there. Why did they come? She said, well, I'm here to support my husband. She said, I didn't really want to come to your retreat because I don't want to give up my 3 friends. I said, what are your 3 friends? She said, caffeine. She said, cheese and sugar. I said, ah. Monday night, she was so sick. 1 cup of coffee a day she has. She was vomiting. She had diarrhea. 1 cup a day. And yet the young woman who was having a 10 a day, hardly a headache. But that young woman was very, very fit. And she was 30. The other woman, who didn't want to come because of her 3 best friends, she actually called them her 3 best friends, she suffered keenly. And she was quite overweight and quite unfit. So we worked hard with the hot foot baths and did what we can. By Tuesday, she was quite good. At the end of the week, I said, do you still call them your 3 best friends? Because if they're best friends, I don't want best friends. And sometimes I think it's good. Now, it sounds terrible that I say it's good that they suffer. We don't want anyone to suffer. But sometimes that is necessary to prove to them how dangerous this thing is. And again, it's very difficult to assess. But we have found, and Dr. Neil Nedley's research also showed this, that the women suffer more than the men. So you can have a woman suffering like this lady did, and then you can have another man having 5 cups of coffee a day. He stops, there hardly seems to be a reaction. Does that mean it's okay for him? No. He's getting a effect from his caffeine, but it could be in other areas. The other neurotransmitter that's affected is acetylcholine. And acetylcholine is a neurotransmitter that has to do with brain function, and it rises when a person has a cup of coffee. But very quickly the brain says, whoa, we've got too much acetylcholine now. Stop making so much acetylcholine. That's why Professor Walter Veith says, if you're going to come to my exam after you've had a cup of coffee, he says, don't come. Because when you come into the exam room, you're going to think that your brain's sparky and you're going to do very well. But he says within half an hour, wow, we have a saying in Australia, not the sharpest knife in the drawer, you know, just not running on all cylinders. The other neurotransmitter is dopamine. And dopamine is your pursuit of reward, your pursuit of happiness hormone, and it rises in a crisis. So when a person is having, say, 3 cups of coffee a day, can you see the constant disruption to their neurotransmitters and the constant exhaustion to the dopamine? We're looking at what should not enter the human body if you're looking at optimum performance.